Hello, Scribblers. I'm Katie, the founder and CEO of the Scribblers Den, your online source for writing craft courses and writing community. We're excited to be back with another guest. Today, we have the amazing and fantabulous Alexandra Overy. Ali has written and published four books. It's really hard to do these Feathered
Yeah.
Flames duology in young adult sphere and the Gingerbread Witch duology in the middle grade sphere. When Allie's not writing, she's either rescuing and rehoming stray kittens or crocheting small animals. And I'm not even going to try to say the word because I will butcher it. And it's really great to have you here with us today.
I'm so excited to be here today. And we will definitely get some little cameos from said rescue kittens.
Yeah, I have rescued kittens from Allie. Like Allie rehomed kittens to me before. She's always looking for good kitten homes. So if you're in the LA area
Yeah,
and
while
you
we're
need
while we're
cats,
here, let's plug the kittens.
yes, like sign up for a course and get a free kitten. Like that's how this works. So, all right. Well, let's just dive right in. And my first question for you is that both of your duologies have really amazing world building. Um, what's the secret sauce to creating worlds that just jump off the page and feel like the reader could just walk into the world? This is the only question you need to answer. After this, we will all be master world builders and bestsellers. So what do we do? What's the secret?
Yeah, you won't need to take the course even.
You won't.
um, well, thank you, first off. It's definitely a part of the process I really enjoy. So it's really nice to hear that. I would say if I was doing like one like secret sauce kind of thing, I would say details. And by that, I don't mean like you need the sort of like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, I know every single thing. What I mean is like before you start drafting or even when you're revising, whatever it is, make a list of like 10 to 15 small details about your world. So something like this is the name of the god of luck. This is what their currency is. This is what their I don't know, fashion choices are like. So you have the 10 to 15 details, and you can always just refer back to them when you're describing somewhere, when you're doing conversations. You can think about, like, okay, how do I bring that in? Because I think having those like small details that apply very much in like everyday life is
Mhm.
what makes a world feel very real to us as a reader. Because that's how we interact with our world, is we're not, constantly sitting and thinking about the whole long history of the world, hopefully. We're thinking about like how many dollars is my dinner going to cost? And I think, yeah, so having those and having those on hand as well, so that when you're drafting, you don't have to like pause your drafting flow and be like, oh, wait, what do I want to call this? Or what do I want to do for this? I think is super helpful.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I do feel like when I read books and they have little things, either like they'll mention a holiday or like a specific dish or something, a really specific piece of clothing, and then it's described. And sometimes it's not even described, like holidays, I think are
Yeah.
the greatest. Like people will be like, and there was this holiday. And you're like, wait, what is that? But they never tell you. You just know that
Yeah.
they celebrate it. And like maybe one small detail about that, like they all wear green or whatever. And it really
Yeah.
does make it seem layered and real. So I think that's really good advice. We're done here. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming
So
on our show. I appreciate it. Um, all right. So that's the secret sauce.
yeah.
What is your personal favorite aspect of world building? What do you like to get really nerdy about and
Ooh.
just dig in there and do like the Tolkien-esque thing where like I'm gonna know absolutely everything about this?
It does depend on the book, so depending on the world, because I have a few where like maybe a particular aspect of it I know is going to be important to the story, so I like particularly gravitate towards that. But I would say generally my favorite is probably the map. It's such a fun thing to start with. It's a visual thing you have. It's such a great reference point. You can go back to it and be like, oh, I need to mention that this gold came from this place and these swords came from that place. And I feel like for me, because it's such like an open and kind of like freeing exercise. You just get
Mm.
like a piece of paper and you start like writing and drawing like here are mountains and sort of building it from there. It lets your imagination really like run wild with things, and it's such a nice way of like building on top of any ideas you already have. Like, yeah,
Okay.
I would say maps are probably where I get sort of super detailed and into it, especially when I start thinking like, okay, but why is this bridge here? Why is this here? And yeah, it's definitely like the best vehicle for me in terms of trying to sort of figure out big overall pictures for the world.
Mhm.
And it's just fun.
That's fascinating to me as someone like I enjoy maps, but they frustrate me a lot because I have a vision in my head and I never feel like it's actually going to work, I guess. And you started like talking about like the why, and I'm like, is that like, can I just put mountains there? Like, what is that how that would work? And
I mean, yeah.
yeah, I get really bogged down in that, which is crazy because I'm doing a fantasy world and you can kind of do whatever you want within
Yeah.
reason. Um, but yeah, I get really frustrated by making a map, as I think you know about me at this point. Allie has designed maps for me, because I'm not so great at it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that's. I mean, that's the thing about world building, and that's the thing we talk about a lot in the course is that no one way works for everyone,
mm,
and they're all like different tools that you can just basically work on and work with and pick up when one works and one doesn't. And there's definitely like certain stories or books I've written where I'm like, the map isn't that helpful in this one, or like I
yeah,
don't really like that's not the big place I want to start. But I think a lot of times for me it is, but it's yeah, definitely just what works.
yeah. No, that's absolutely fascinating. So this kind of relates to another question I was going to ask later on. We're just going to jump to it now. When you
Let's
read
go.
a book, are you a diehard map
Mm.
person? Like if you're reading a book, there has to be a map in there, and if not, do you feel cheated?
Uh, I do. I mean, I love a good map.
Okay.
Is there's just something exciting when you open the book up and you're like, ooh, I can get like a little teaser. And I do love, especially in like fantasy, especially when you get into like high fantasy and like
Mm,
locations and things are really important. I do really like being able to like refer back and be like, oh yeah, that's where this is. That's where this is.
yeah.
That's what this place they're referring to is. I think that's super helpful. Um, I wouldn't like, yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh, I won't read the book. There's no map.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely enjoy, and I think especially if you like really love a book, it's so nice to like go back and you can like dive a little deeper and be like, oh, look at these little like Easter eggs that they've got in here, and yeah.
Yeah, that's probably I should probably pay more attention to the maps. I'm I'm not a big visual like this is my problem actually when I read graphic novels is I really skip over the visuals. And that's the whole point of a graphic novel. I'm just like, oh, there's no words on this page, and I flip right past it, and I'm missing half the
Yeah.
story. So I think I do the same thing with the map, is that I miss some of those
Mm-hmm.
details because I'm just so focused on the words. And I need to work on that.
Yeah.
That's my that's a goal for me is to be more influenced by pictures. Do you have
I
a
mean, I
favorite
think it's
map?
important to remember as well, though. Oh, sorry, I jumped. But
Oh yeah, no, it's okay. I was
do
gonna
I
say
have
if
a
you
favorite
finish,
map? Ooh. I was gonna say, it's just important to remember, I think, when you write that, like, I know for me personally, I sometimes rely on the map and I'm like, oh, they can refer back to it and look at it. But like, of course, not every reader is going to do that. They might be listening to the audiobook, they might be looking at the ebook, and it's like harder to get back to it.
right?
So it's definitely it's like a cheat sheet you can use, but you also do have to like it has to all be in the words ultimately. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have a favorite map outside of your books? Like one that you've just like looked
so
at?
two come to mind. So yeah, so two come to mind. I can think of I see I can I definitely am more of a visual person. So as soon as you say that, I can like visualize a whole load of different book maps. Um, so two I really love. I love the map in the beginning of Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard.
Mm,
I know that she put a lot of work into it and work into making it very detailed and very like geographically accurate. And it is actually one of the maps I think we use as an example in the course. But I love it. It's so detailed. Like it's definitely the sort of Tolkien level inspired kind of map making. And there's something really cool about that. You can go in, you can look at like tiny details of like this river here, this here,
yeah,
and you really get to begin to see the like overall vision of the world from the outset. And because it's also like a quest book, so they move
right.
around a lot. So as you're reading, you can go back and be like, oh yeah, this is where they are now. And like, yeah, I feel like it works very nicely like that. And then the other one I love is the map in the beginning of Six of Crows.
Yes.
Um, specifically Six of Crows because it actually has two maps, which is cool. I love it that it has the
So
Isochord map
nerdy.
and the like overall map. And I love that one because I feel like it like visualizes power structures really well.
Mhm.
Because like in Six of Crows, you're it's for anyone who hasn't read it, you should. You've probably been told that before if you haven't read it. Um, but it's a great book. But it's technically a spin-off from another series and set in a slightly different place to the other series. So it's like a slightly expanded map from the original, and you can really see how you're in a much smaller country. You're not in an empire anymore, and you can see even just from the maps, like the ways they would need to protect themselves, the ways like magic might play into it. Like it's a very fun and just like as a sort of fantasy writer, it's very fun to look at it and be like, oh yeah, I can immediately see like where she's beginning to put tensions, even just like from the map, which is
Mhm.
very cool. I mean, she may
Which
have not done it that way around, but still.
right, but that really makes a lot of sense. And just that I think that goes into because I know you talk in the course a lot about how layered everything is and how everything affects something else. And no world building element really exists in isolation. Everything is connected somehow.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really great example of how that all comes together and it's all layered.
Yeah.
All right. So when our next question, when you world build, do you tend to do the majority of your world building before you actually start drafting? Or do you draft first and then go back and build the world around what you've drafted? And why do you do it that way? Why does that work for you? Deep questions.
I would say for me personally, I do majority. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I think for me, I do the majority of it, I would say before. Um, as you just said, it sort of comes back to like as the story evolves, the world sometimes evolves. So some of it will change. It's not necessarily set in stone. Um, but for me personally, I really like to have some kind of a map. And I don't mean like a drawn map, like a sort of like imagined map of like, okay, this is the world I'm standing in. These are the pieces of it. How do they begin to interact?
Mhm.
Because I think otherwise I find it very easy to get lost and sort of like lost on the blank page and not writing anything because I'm like, there's too many things. I don't know where I'm doing any of this. So actually for almost all my books, I have a little pile up there of notebooks and it pretty much all opens with things like this is a subtitle like of the world. This is a
Okay.
subtitle of like, what is their gods? What do they believe in? Um, and I think, yeah, for me, it gives me, I really like having some kind of structure and foundation to write from. I mean, it also relates directly to the fact that I'm a plotter more than like a pantser. So I'm also someone
Yeah.
who, in all senses, I like to have a
That
fair
order.
amount of stuff planned out beforehand. Otherwise, like I said, I get very easily like overwhelmed by yeah, and I think, yeah, it's like I definitely will have parts of it that get made up as I go. I'm suddenly like, oh, I need this to happen. What if I put a temple to the god of thieves here? That would be
Yes.
cool. Or I need a festival so that like we can have a fun party. So it definitely evolves as it goes. I think that's a big sort of term around world building is evolving, like it's ever evolving because it changes as you write it, it changes as you think about it. And
Yeah.
that's a good thing is like you don't have to be completely married to whatever you first choose until you publish it. Unfortunately, then you are kind of married to it
Then that's just
and you
how
can't
it
undo
goes.
it.
Yeah.
I did have that with one of my books. Yeah. With
Oh, I'm
one
trying
of
to
my
think of
books
what it
where I
was.
wanted a place. The first book
Oh
had
yeah,
already
I
been
remember.
published.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted the two places to be closer together. Yeah. And but the map had already been published in the first one, and I was like, well, they're already too far apart, so I guess I have to just accept this.
I'm definitely like a go back and world build after I have like the story. Like my focus is on like what's going to happen and then I figure out how, I guess. I don't know. Like I always just kind of I tend to draft and have general ideas, but not in depth. I'm just like in here they worship like this general idea or like they have this and then I have to go back and fill in all those details. Um which is sometimes exhausting because it's a lot of revising and a
Yeah.
lot of like, oh, this doesn't work anymore, like throwing out it 10 pages and having to redo it. So I need to learn how to play it and follow the
I
course.
don't know.
Follow the two
Sometimes
things.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I those get like too caught in the world building and then I forget about like plot and character.
Mm.
So there's a balance.
Yeah, there is, because I talk to a lot of writers, even writers like in my writing group that I'm part of, and they're like, I've just been world building for like 5 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how?
Yeah,
How are
it's
you
easy
doing
to
that?
get. Yeah.
Like, can we trade? Like, you world build for me, and then I'll
Yeah.
write your like. Let's just. How can we make this work for both of us? So, um, all right. So, next question is, how do you incorporate real world things, items, ideas, concepts, events into your world building? Because obviously we make things up, but it always has to start from something. So, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're all like making things up, but we all exist within this society, and like
Right.
consciously or not, we're all influenced by like whatever we know, whatever we believe of this society that we live in. Um, I studied history in college. My dad is a historian, so I definitely have a sort of like, I don't know. I enjoy the history part of things. I
And the reason for
enjoy
your love of
bringing that
maps
in.
is
I
like
enjoy the
very
sort of
clear.
wealth of, yeah. um, I also just think as soon as you get into history, history is so much weirder than you expect it to be. And you're suddenly like,
Yes.
wait, there's so many interesting stories here. Like, what do you mean they did? Like, I was reading one yesterday about how they made letter openers out of people's forearm bones. So, which for
That's
fantasy authors, that's interesting. But
that is
not everyone might,
fascinating.
right? And I
There's
was
going to
like,
be a
this
whole
is
slew
so,
of books now where people are doing that, and it's all going to be
I
because you
know.
just said that.
Excellent, excellent. Um, but yeah, so I think it's such a like it's a wonderful resource on that front to sort of tap into, to look at. And I think
Mhm.
you, and also once you start looking at any kind of historical period, you'll realize how much like some of your favorite writers have definitely already done that, like subconsciously, not subconsciously. um just because I think, I mean, several reasons, one being that humans persist to do the same things over and over again.
Right, right.
We insist on making the same mistakes and the same bad choices over and over. So it's deeply relevant. It's always going to be relevant. You're always going to have things that will pop up cyclically, and those are
Yes.
going to be pretty relevant in your fantasy book. It was actually quite funny when Katie and I were working on this course. There was quite a few things. For example, that I had a little mini section on the importance of canals, and Katie was like, "Ah, yep, getting timely, all
Yes.
over again." So yeah, it's the stuff that pops up again and again. It's a playbook in a lot of ways of things that will continue to play out. Hopefully not always, but that's a whole other question.
Yeah,
um,
that's a different that's a
yeah, that's
different
a whole
conversation.
separate.
We
um,
we can't go that deep.
yeah, no, that's too. I have sadly no answers for that. Um, but yeah, I think it's such a wealth of like the study of human experience. That
Yeah.
maybe sounds really pretentious, but like I think when you look back, it's weird and much more relatable. And I don't mean
Yeah.
that in terms of like, when people do terrible things, but I think we often think of history as like something far and very different, when actually you look back and you read someone's diary extract and they're actually
Mm.
just talking about how cute their cat is, which
Yes.
is the same thing we do all
Yeah.
day
Yeah,
today.
doing laundry and doing the dishes, which is, like
Yeah, like
that's what we're doing now
universal.
is we live
Yeah,
through the 2025 timeline, and we're just like, yes, like
yeah,
I'm still making a cake or rescuing a cat, and
yeah,
history is happening all around us. So yeah, it is. I think that's a really good way of
yeah,
putting it, that idea of that, just the human experience and how
yeah,
we would interact with that. And then it changes based on, like, you add some magic in there or
yeah,
a character, like, and their different personalities, and it's just chaos,
yeah,
absolute chaos. Which you're
yes.
also really good at. So guys, if you have not read, this is my pitch for Allie's books, right? If
Oh,
you
thank
have
you.
not read either These Feathered Flames or The Gingerbread Witch, um, she is chaotic with her characters a little bit, and you think like okay, like I know how this is going, and then all of a sudden she will just rip your heart out, and you're really sad.
It is the most fun, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you do it so well. Like I just, oh yeah,
Oh,
please read her
thank you.
books. And then like feel free to obviously like I will scream with you about them and how amazing they are, but you could always, just like I don't know, something. Um
I mean, now that you've done that, I feel like I should say that one of the reasons my books I feel have done, and I'm as happy with them as I am, is because I've had a lot of help from wonderful critique partners such as Katie. So Katie does have a wealth of knowledge on all of this, which is one of the great reasons she started Scribblers Den. So I'm
thank
gonna pitch you
you.
back.
You. Yeah, this is honestly like I again like okay, so this is like the like we really love each other portion of this interview because Allie has helped me grow my skill set so much when she randomly reached out to me like in 20 a
I think it was
long time ago.
2017.
Maybe 20
Yeah,
yeah, 2017. Yeah, that is correct.
I'm pretty
Um
sure it was just, yeah.
yeah, just like randomly reached out to me. I'm like, who is this person? Um and now I adopt cats from her. So
Yeah,
you
which
too
is
will find
ideal.
your people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean,
All right.
that's
So
the beautiful thing with like, yeah, writing community. It's so good.
yes.
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
tiny segue. Well,
Yeah. Getting back on track. Um,
yeah,
this
it
is all really important though, because writing community just it is. It's what builds you up and gives you
is.
that
Yeah.
confidence, and that's how you like to borrow something from the business world. You upskill yourself. Um,
Oh,
I know, right? Yes. Now that I'm a small business
fancy.
owner, my vocabulary should
Yeah,
shift
the
it
business
again.
lingo.
Um, so sorry for all you business people. You're like, that's not how you use that word. Too bad. I did it. Okay.
Too late.
So back to questions that are actually relevant. Um, so part of building a fantasy world usually involves some level of language creation. Can you just give a little glimpse at what your process looks like, or how you do that?
Yeah, so I think language creation can be one of the most fun and also one of the most overwhelming parts of building a world. It's can feel really massive. So I think, and it depends. For me personally, like my process changes. There's two sort of basic ways I do it, which is either I use an analog language from the real world, so I base it quite closely on a language from the real world, or I go like a little bit more detailed and think about like, okay, what structure do I want this language to have? I think, yeah, for a lot of people, and what I did, I know with like my debut, because it's a Russian inspired fairy tale, was I based it quite strongly on the Russian language, but with like some take like step backs because I didn't want it to be, because it's not historical. I didn't want it to be exactly the same. And I think that's always a really good place for people to start, is looking at real world languages that can be inspirations. Of course, when it comes to that, you have to think about the ways in which you're using language as well, which is a
Yeah.
whole other section we get into a little bit on the course. Just to think, but yeah, think about the sort of perspective you're coming from. We've had so many cat visitors. Hi. Um, but yeah, I think the big thing that was rude. Wow.
Things to
Holly
add.
doesn't like languages. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think my big takeaway for it is, of course, different processes. I'm not on the Tolkien level of like you can speak the entire
Oh
lexicon
my
of
gosh,
Elvish.
yes.
But if you want, just on a more of a basic level, I think it's really good to start with words you feel are relevant and feel come up in relation to your main character and your
Mm.
story. Similarly to you're being very rude. Sorry. Similarly to the world building details I said.
She once hired. She was like, I should be teaching the language portion of
Yeah,
this.
she probably should. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, if you bring in a few details will go a long way.
Mm.
So if you think about, particular, like for example, how someone says like "God damn it," that's
Yeah.
something that you'll find comes up a lot, and is very useful to have sort of in your back pocket to pull out. So yeah, I feel like I got distracted by Holly there, but my like two-pronged side of this is on the one side, it's good to take a language, and that language can be English. That could be whatever language works for your story.
Okay.
and figure out how to adapt around it to how things work for your book. And then the other side of it is to have a few things that you basically have ready for when you want to use them, such as phrases you think might be common or things you might come up. Because again, when you're drafting, you'll find it helps not like break the pace because you're like, oh, I have this word here.
Right. Yeah, I put out like all of my swears and like my slang and things like that
Yeah.
just in brackets, and I'll use something from like our common world, like "suck it up, Buttercup." I'm like that does not fit, but
Sadly.
something like that. Yeah. And
Which
then
is another way of
also,
doing it.
yeah, and I really loved what you did with language in the Gingerbread Witch because your spells were backwards. Um, so like what Ali did was just take a sentence like jump sideways twice and it
Yeah.
would be completely backwards, like spelled backwards everything. So it'd start with twice, but like the E C and
Like
I
reversed.
W, yeah,
Yeah.
like reverse. Thank you. Like I can't do this. I can't spell um and
I know
not mess
spelling
this up.
backwards is hard enough. It's like, no.
It is, but it was really clever because the first time I looked at it, like I'm reading this and I'm like, what is, and then I got to the end and I was like, oh my gosh, wait. And I could see that. And I thought that was so brilliant for especially like a middle grade book. Um, because you just used like normal language, normal words, and just changed up the order. And I thought that that was really clever and that middle grade readers, especially, would respond so well to that because they could just then read it backwards and know exactly what was going on.
It's so funny you mention it because I
Yeah.
did a school visit literally 2 days ago with a group of I think 10, 11 year olds, and it was two different groups I did, and both groups brought that up to me
Yeah.
about the spells being backwards and how they liked that. Like, well, because one of the sort of things in the book is that the language of magic is hard to read, but then
Yeah.
you can learn to read it and learn to understand it. So there's that really fun thing with like the kids are reading it at the beginning, they're like, this doesn't make sense, and by the
Right.
end they're like, oh no, but I know the trick to it. So they're sort
Yeah.
of learning with the main character. It's very fun.
And if they were like me, they probably actually tried to say it too, because I
Yeah.
did that. I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm doing this. It's
I didn't.
what?
I was like, good luck.
Yeah. But yeah, I just like I was like that was just so clever and so like it's just intuitive and it seemed very simple, but it had such a great effect. And I think
Yeah.
exactly like you said, like by the end they know the trick, and so they have now like they're in on the secret, and you've really engaged with the
Yeah.
reader. So from a teaching standpoint, I'm like that's amazing. Like yes.
Yeah,
uh,
no, I'm really happy it worked. It was definitely slightly challenging for the audiobook narrator, I will say.
yeah.
Um we ended up having to slightly edit the text. So if you ever do listen to the audiobook it does not have them backwards. It has like added words explaining that it should sound backwards. So that was an
Okay.
interesting added layer of the publishing process.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't even know about that. I should know about these things, and I didn't even know about
Yeah.
that. And I always say that because I get to know everything about Allie's
I was
publishing process.
yeah. It was a really busy time, I feel, so I probably was just like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. Totally valid. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry, I will.
We
We're
will.
going to discuss this. No,
We'll table it for now.
table it for now. Okay. So what is a favorite world building element that you've put into one of your books? Like what's the coolest thing that you think you personally have ever done?
Ooh, this is tough because it means I have to be nice to myself, but this is a good
Yes,
exercise.
it is. It is.
I will say I actually the doing the words backwards is particularly on my mind because the kids mentioned it a few days ago. Because I do love how that's like, yeah, the organic process of like they learn with the
Mm,
character. But I think, I mean, the other one has to be in These Feathered Flames. Instead of riding horses, they ride bears, which is just so much fun. And it was
yes.
like a teeny detail at the beginning where one character was traveling and she was like traveling riding a horse. And I wish I could take credit for this. I actually can't. I gave the horse a name. It was called Mishka, which in Russian means little bear. And I mentioned this to my sister, and my sister was like, why don't you just make them ride bears? And I was like, oh my God, this is genius. So I mean, I did steal this essentially from
Yeah.
someone else, which is another world building tip.
Yes.
is talking to other people about it as you're doing it. They sometimes will come up with like very organic, very fun ideas,
Mhm.
and it can be very helpful. But yeah, I'd say the bears, I think, because it gave like so many fun layers to it, as well
It
as like
did.
it
It
really
did.
lent to that sort of, yeah, like that fairy tale, slightly ethereal, snowy feel to it, as well as just like the fun that's there with like they're all riding bears. Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't want to cuddle a bear, So I think, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
probably my favorite one, I would say.
Yeah. No, like I think because like you do that, and who is it? Philip Pullman in The Golden
Yeah,
Compass, like
in
they
yeah,
ride
his art
the,
materials, yeah,
yeah, which are really cool. And so like it was one of my favorite things. I love Mishka.
yeah.
Um, and it's just it's fabulous. Like I think to me, like there are a lot of selling points for your book, but like that's just a super fun one. You tell people like, oh, they ride bears, and people are like, what? What's happening? I want a bear.
Yeah, I did use that all the time in my
Yes.
pitch. I'd be like, by the way, they ride bears.
Yeah. And it's like it immediately grabs you like, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's fun. I just love thinking about like the visual of that.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think that's the other thing is it conjures, and in some ways, again, it's a small detail. Like it doesn't come up that much that they
Right.
ride bears as much as probably that they ride horses, but it conjures up such a specific atmosphere, such a specific visual,
Hmm.
and it like lent so much immediately to my story. I was like, oh my God, the atmosphere feels
Yeah.
right now. This like, yeah. So it's definitely one of those examples of like a smallish detail where you're like, oh, that actually just like
Yep.
cracked everything.
Yeah, it's really cool. Um, so favorite world building in a book that you haven't written.
Ooh, also tough because there's so many.
No.
This means I have to think about books. And this is the one I should have prepared beforehand and I forgot. Let me look at my bookshelf over there.
I'll just like play some
Um,
Jeopardy music or something in here in the
yeah,
interim.
I will say I was trying to think of one I don't reference in the course so that I could have like an extra one, but the
Right.
one that oh, now two are coming to mind. Okay. Two that come to mind. One is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor,
Yeah,
which I
excellent.
mean, she's just a phenomenal writer in so many ways, but the world building in that book is so rich and like so luscious and so real and also so terrifying and like
Yes.
everything about that book is stunning, but the world in particular, for anyone that hasn't read it, the sort of basic idea behind it is that the main character is traveling to this city known as Weep because it lost its name, which in itself is just so cool. And it's
Yes.
like such a cool immediate hook. You immediately get the tone, you get like, you're like, yeah, I know where I am in this world, like such strong visuals. It's yeah, it's really stunning. Um, and then the other one is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen,
Yes.
which uses a really cool like magical justice system where
Yeah.
essentially like their equivalent of I guess lawyers or police. I don't know what they would be the equivalent of because they don't. Yeah, their equivalent of law people.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
like
I'm not actually
litigators.
sure.
I could see that.
Yeah, right. They basically they have to investigate a case, and once they think they have the truth, they call on like a council of the gods, and if they get it wrong, they lose their life according to the god, like according to what the gods believe. And it's just such a cool and like unusual justice system, an unusual aspect of it. Um, that again, yeah, it just feels like very fresh and different. And I love when you get worlds that you come into and it's like, yeah, why shouldn't it be entirely different to how we do
Yeah.
things in our world when they have an entirely different basis? And yeah, I love when authors do that. So
Those are two great examples. And I've read and I love them both. And
yeah,
just to go
highly
back
recommend those.
to Laini Taylor, like she is so good. And I know you're really big on the Strange the Dreamer side. I'm really big on the Daughter of Smoke and Bone side. Like I love them both, but that one, like her trilogy is my favorite. And I think that you're
Yeah,
more on like the Strange Dreamer, Muse of Nightmares. But yeah, just all of her
yeah.
world building
It's
is
if I had to pick, it would
so
yeah,
beautiful and just
it is. It's so beautiful.
layered. And then all of a sudden, like you think you're following along greatly, and she'll just pull this one thread, and all of a sudden everything does a
Yeah,
360, and you're like, wait a second, how did she manage to pull that off? Um,
yeah.
yeah, like
She's
really,
so good at that.
yes, yeah. As a reference text, like definitely read
Yeah,
hers.
highly
Get out your
recommend it.
highlighters, get out your notepads, like mark up
Yeah,
the text. Yeah.
for sure.
All right. So, can you give us a little tiny glimpse or maybe even an elevator pitch for what you're working on right now?
Ooh, fun question because I'm actually working on quite a few things. So I have to kind of pick
You want to
one
just, you
and
can pick
decide which
one,
one
you
I'm
could give us all the intel or
um yeah, I mean, I will preface it by saying that publishing is a really long process. So it might be a while before any of these are readable. But the one I'm having fun with right now is I'll give you a tentative title. It's called Monstrosity. It's a sort of magical heist where a character is trying to steal, basically heist someone's soul
oh my
in order
gosh.
to prove that she didn't steal something years before. It's very fun, very like I love heisty things.
I feel like that's like a
It's like a
classic
bit lighter,
thief mode though. Like, I'm going to prove that I didn't do
right?
this crime and steal this by
By
stealing this
stealing,
thing.
right? I
That is
know, and
brilliant.
everyone else is like, "Do we think this is a great? Because you are just like committing another crime." She's like, "Nope,
Right.
this is what I'm doing."
Yeah, no, this is clearly what we should do
Yeah,
here.
clearly this is the solution.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So viewers, listeners, you need to let people know about this book
One day.
because I'd like to read it. Um, and you know that you do too, because how that's amazing. That's amazing. I want to be there. A heist to prove I didn't heist. Perfect.
Yeah, always fun.
Yes. Love it. All right. So I've got three quick questions for you, and I need like an answer within 5 to 10 seconds. You're not allowed to think about these.
Oh no, this
Are
is
you ready?
scary. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
ready, but okay.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Fish food. Very specific Ben and Jerry's fish food. In
I
case
got
you don't know
so
what that
nervous for a
is.
second. I'm like,
Yeah.
fish flavored ice cream? Oh my God. And then I remembered and realized that that's
Fish. It's like
actually,
PH. Yeah.
yeah. And they're little peanut butter. And I was like, oh, that is an excellent
There's no
choice.
peanut butter. Excuse
Oh,
you.
are there not peanut butter in the little fishes? I thought
No.
that there were, are they just solid chocolate?
A solid chocolate. That's why they're so good.
Okay. I thought I was convinced that there was peanut butter in them.
And
Uh,
maybe a
I
different one,
I think I just
but
lost.
no.
I just lost this
Yeah,
entire.
the ice cream game.
I lost the ice cream game. I'm done. Um, it's been a long weekend.
It's okay. I'll start telling you your opinions on chocolate chip cookies soon.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that will come up later. I decided to not. I that was going to be one of my questions, and then I didn't. So
I'm so glad I brought it up anyway.
yes. Okay, what's the book that you have read the most times, and you're not allowed to say one of your own because we all know that you've probably
Mm,
read that a gazillion times as you have
yeah,
drafted and revised and edited and all that.
yeah, yeah. That would be the winner. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's a tie. I would say between the Percy Jackson series because I went through a phase of listening to the audiobooks of those to fall asleep because
Nice.
they're very comforting, like childhood kind of ones. And Vicious by V. Schwab because something about that book it's I mean it's technically a series but you can very much read it as a standalone. It's
Mm,
such a good book. It's one of those ones that every like year or so I'm like, you know what, I feel like reading.
vicious. Yeah.
So
And that one is good. And it's you've got the villain origin story. You have again
good.
like phenomenal world building.
Yeah,
Um,
very cool world building.
yeah, V. Schwab is another person like
Yeah,
read their books because they really do such a great job um with developing and creating worlds.
yeah,
And
that's truly, yeah,
yeah, like again, you think you know everything that's going on, and then just one little thread is pulled and boom, everything's flipped
yep,
upside down. So,
yep.
all right. Favorite trope.
Okay, well the thing that came to my brain immediately was enemies to lovers, so now I have to say it.
You do see, and that's how that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so can't escape it.
And I would say that you do that well because in both all of your books there is enemies to lovers element,
Yeah, there's some aspect of it.
and it's delightful to read. And not only is it enemies to lovers, but it's delightfully queer. Um, so
It's more fun.
Yeah, give us that sapphic love. We need it.
Yes, please.
So, that was all the questions I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, chitting and chatting, chit
Sitting and
chatting.
chatting. Yeah,
Yeah, that did
chit
not
chatting.
even come out right. Oh my gosh,
It's
guys, it's
we can't
like
speak. It's fine.
we can't. We write
Also,
things
I
down.
made you do this after you just had a very long conference weekend,
I
so you've
did.
done very well.
I did. I've been at a conference in Detroit all weekend, and then I drove 4 hours home today. I
So
took
it's
a
kind
really
of
quick
amazing.
nap,
You're
and now I'm here. So
so
awesome,
we're proud
guys.
of you.
Yeah, which that's like the whole like that's the teaching side of it, right? So it was a teaching
Yeah,
conference with the National Education Association. It was so amazing. Um, but it really made me remember how much I love teaching and educating, which is why we have the Scribblers
yay.
Den, and getting to talk with experts in a field and then take that knowledge and make it accessible to people is just so big to me. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate Allie helping me creating this course. She has written some fabulous lectures. We have amazing worksheets and exercises to go through, um, videos, references to things. Like it is so comprehensive. Not to mention that you get to talk to Allie throughout this class as well, which I think is a big thing because sometimes, we take these classes online and you do it and you're like, wait, I have a question. I don't understand this, but you can't
Yeah.
ask anybody. So like this weekly Q&A, a live Q&A, you get to log on, you get to meet the cats, sometimes
Yeah.
dogs. Like you might leave with adopting a cat.
We hope.
We hope that is the goal. That's the bonus. So yeah, I think that's just really cool. That you're willing to have those conversations and again build that support and that community aspect to help everybody aspire to be the best writer they can be.
I mean, I think I'm so excited about that because I mean, we've mentioned it already a lot
Yeah.
this uh session interview today. But like community makes such a big difference and you learn so much from each other. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm teaching the course, but also I feel like teaching talking to people and hearing their questions, you're like, huh, that's a really good perspective on
Yeah.
it. And like it gives you a whole lot, like, yeah, a lot more to think about. And I just want to reiterate as well what you said about like how comprehensive this is.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is where it comes in that it's so wonderful that like, because I'm a writer, I love writing and I love being able to try pass things on, but I'm not a teacher. Whereas Katie has like a comprehensive education in teaching. And so she put together like my sort of like sparse things into something that's very comprehensive. And like the worksheets you've put together for this, I'm going to use them 100% for when I draft my next book because it's amazing. Like the level of detail in this, like you've done an amazing job. So
Yeah.
we're just going to keep hyping each other up. But it's true.
Yes, honestly, but that's what this is. And then the Scribblers Den is here to hype you, viewers, writers up. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, if you have any questions about the course, please drop them in the comments. Feel free to tag me. Allie, is it okay if I tag you in the video or in
Yeah,
the?
please
Okay.
do.
Yep. And I'll
In the
drop
comments.
some
Yeah,
links.
please do. I'm happy. Was happy.
Yeah. And I will drop some links so you can easily find Allie's books and buy them and read them
Thank you.
because you should. um, just read something, honestly. Whatever you want to read. All books are worthwhile and excellent, but also read Allie's books. And I don't know which way she is, so whichever way.
Oh yeah, whichever.
Yeah. I'm never sure like where it's actually gonna end up.
Yeah, where it's gonna be on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. Well, we're gonna sign off here and we will see you all in the world building course, which I don't, you know what? I never said when it starts.
That we remembered just before. It's
We
time. It's
remembered.
still time.
So March 22nd, registrations are open. You can go to www.scribblersden.org. That link will also be below and sign up. And we can't wait to meet you and to be part of your writing journey.
I'm so excited.
Bye.
Bye everyone.